Good evening and welcome to Northampton County Council 2020, January 23rd, 2025 meeting. Mr. Brown, will you lead us in the pledge? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we please have a moment of silence? Ms. Shafnisky, will you call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Corpora?
Here.
Mr. Giovanni?
Here.
Mr. Goffredo?
Here.
Mr. Heckman? Ms. Keegan?
Here.
Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Here.
Mr. Warren?
Here.
All present except for Mr. Heckman.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 6th and January 9th, 2025?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was there yesterday. Courtesy of the floor, we have no one that signed up. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to courtesy of the floor this evening? Is there anyone else from the public? No. Mr. McClure, do you have a report?
In the interest of not sounding like this for a prolonged period of time, I don't have a report to make, but if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
At this time. Thank you. Next, we have old business, public hearing of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the Council of the County of Northampton, Northampton County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the incurring of non-electoral debt by the issuance of general obligation bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $35 million, covenanting to pay and pledging all available taxing power of the local government unit for the payment of the bonds, providing for the establishment of a sinking fund and appointing a sinking fund depository, fixing the form, maximum interest rates, maturity dates, and other provisions for the payment thereof, authorizing the acceptance of a proposal for the purchase of the bonds, authorizing a filing of required documents with the Department of Community and Economic Development, ratifying directing certain actions of officers, and making certain other covenants and provisions in respect of the bonds. Mr. Warren and Kapora introduced this ordinance at the January 9th, 2025 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, are there any questions or discussion from the council? Mr. Kapoor?
Seeing that we do not have a full council this evening, and this is a large amount of money, I vote to table.
You motion to table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Goffredo?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Ms. Keegan?
No.
Mr. Kraft? Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
The motion to table passes by a vote of 6-2.
Thank you. Next, we have the public hearing of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Northampton County Administrative Code, Article 3, Section 4, Conservation District Division." Mr. Kapora and Giovanni introduced this at the January 9th, 2025 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Is there any discussion from council? Call for the vote.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Goffredo?
Yes.
Ms. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you. Is there any other old business to discuss? Hearing none, new business, consideration of the executive's appointments and reappointments resolution, Conservation District Board, Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority, Lehigh and Northampton Transportation Authority, Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Advisory Board. Mr. Kapura, will you introduce the resolution?
Resolved by Northampton County Council that the following individuals shall be confirmed in their reappointment as indicated hereafter. Conservation District Board, Jeff Warren, Bethlehem, PA, Government Director, term to expire 12/31/2025. Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority appointment, Kevin Lott, Hellertown, PA, term to expire 12/31/30. Lehigh Northampton Transportation Authority reappointment, Jared Mast, Easton, PA, term to expire 3/2/30. Lehigh Valley Planning Commission reappointment, elected official Jessica Cope, North Catasauqua, PA, term to expire 12/31/2025. Citizen Andrew Elliott, Easton, PA, term to expire 12/31/2029. Elected official John Gallagher, term to expire 12/31/2025. Mr. Gallagher is from Bethlehem, PA. Judith Haldeman, Northampton, PA, term to expire 12/31/2025. Kenneth Kraft, Bethlehem, PA, term to expire 12/31/2025. Jean Versteeg, Bethlehem, PA, term to expire 12/31/2025.
Are there any discussion?
One more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Advisory Board reappointment, Rob Neitz, Nazareth, PA, term to expire 3/19/2027. Paul Riccardi, Bethlehem, PA, term to expire 3/19/2027.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Are there any discussion on the matter? Yes, Mr. Gafredo.
Who currently holds the Conservation District Board, the government director position, or is that a new position now that they are no longer affiliated with the county?
I'm not sure. Just trying to get that information this week.
That position was vacant, and it's been an existing position.
And vacant, but it's an existing position. And then what is the role now that they're an independent agency? We no longer, how is it that we have a position to be able to fill?
It's in the statute that the Conservation District boards are appointed by, they're recommended by the county executive, approved by council, so that the appointing the board members, that process remains the same now that they're independent. It's the same
Even
for
though we
all
don't have an
conservation
MOU with them
districts.
anymore? Even if we don't have an MOU with them anymore?
All conservation districts in the Commonwealth are appointed by, the boards are appointed by the counties.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni? Mr. Gafredo?
Yes.
Ms. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni, you still there? All right, passes by a vote of 7-0.
I just thought that. Consideration of Pennsylvania Act 106 compliance resolutions, appointment of risk manager. Mr. Brown, would you introduce?
Let me make sure I have the right one. Whereas on November 23rd, 2011, Act 106 became immediately effective, authorizing counties to obtain individual bonds, blanket bonds, or crime insurance covering county officers and employees, replacing prior requirements that certain individual officers of the county have separate bonds. And whereas pursuant to subsection 1130A of the Act, which requires county council as the governing body of the county of Northampton to establish a procedure by which it shall annually determine the form and required amount of required security that will be reasonably sufficient to protect against the risk of loss in compliance with this subchapter. And whereas subchapter 1130B of the Act permits the county council to appoint a risk manager to compile and submit information relevant to the determination of an amount of required security under subsection A. And whereas section 1129 of the Act requires that the form and contents of a bond and insurance obtained in compliance with this subchapter shall be approved by the governing body of the county after review by the county solicitor in consultation with the county risk manager. And whereas Northampton County Council Resolution 71-2013, enacted on September 5, 2013, designated the Director of the Department of Administration or his or her designee to serve as risk manager for the purposes of Act 106. And whereas prior to the close of every calendar year, the amount of security that the risk manager recommends that the county maintain during the succeeding year and otherwise to provide the information as set forth below to enable the county council to place into force the bond and insurance required by the Act for the succeeding year. And whereas following a review by the county solicitor, the Director of Administration is recommending that the county council approve the following levels of security as provided under the county's insurance policy through the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, CCAP, and its Pennsylvania Counties Risk Pool, PCOR, program, and additional security through bonds that are required by law. Therefore, it is hereby resolved that the county shall hereby accept the following level of security to cover public officials, including members of council and the county executive. 1, crime coverage through the county's insurance policy with PCOR, which covers all county officials and employees for fraud, embezzlement, theft, forgery, and other criminal acts up to $1 million per occurrence. 2, a wire transfer bond in the amount of $4 million, which provides additional security above the maximum of $1 million crime coverage under PCOR for certain county employees authorized to initiate wire transfers. 3, a treasurer's bond in the amount of $72,000, which is coverage required by the state based on revenue collection levels and is still required since Act 106 does not apply to the county treasurers acting as tax collectors as provided in Section 4 of the local tax collection law. 4, a magisterial district justice bond in the amount of $55,000 per magisterial district justice since Act 106 does not apply to those officials.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo? Ms. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-0.
Next, we have form and content. Mr. Brown, will you introduce?
I think that's it.
Yeah, it's that one, right? Yeah. Whereas on November 23rd, 2011, Act 106 became immediately effective, authorizing counties to obtain individual bonds, blanket bonds, or crime insurance covering county officers and employees, replacing prior requirements that certain individuals and officers of the county have separate bonds. Whereas pursuant to subsection 1130A of the Act, which requires county council as the governing body of the county of Northampton to establish a procedure by which it shall annually determine the form and required amount of the required security that will be reasonably sufficient to protect against the risk of loss in compliance with this subchapter. And whereas subchapter 1130B of the Act permits county council to appoint a risk manager to compile and submit information relevant to the determination of an amount of required security under subsection A. And whereas section 1129 of the Act requires that the form and content of a bond and insurance obtained in compliance with this subchapter shall be approved by the governing body of the county after review by the county solicitor in consultation with the county risk manager. Therefore, it is hereby resolved that the county shall hereby adopt the following procedure for compliance with the provisions of the Act. 1, county council is designating the Director of the Department of Administration or his or her designee to serve as risk manager for the purposes of this Act. 2, the Director of Administration or his or her designee is hereby designated to compile and submit information to the county council prior to the close of every calendar year as to the amount of security that the risk manager recommends that the county maintain during the succeeding year, and otherwise to provide the information as set forth below to enable county council to place into force the bond and insurance required by the act for the succeeding year. 3, in the course of performing the duties assigned under the above, the Department of Administration and the solicitors shall confer to determine the form and content of the bond and insurance would comply with the provisions of the act. 4, at least 2 weeks prior to the close of every calendar year, the Department of Administration shall present to the county council for its consideration and approval the form and the amount of the required security, together with the recommendation as to the bond or policy satisfying the criteria set forth in the act.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
Yes.
Ms. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft? Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you. Is there any other new business to discuss? Mr. Warren?
Madam President, thank you very much. We have a lot of important work to do here on this council, and this is certainly not the biggest issue that is going to come before us this year, but I need to bring this up because we are heading into campaign season, or as I like to call it, silly season, and I needed to bring this matter up so that everybody is on the same page. This goes for all candidates. I don't care if you're Democrat, I don't care if you're Republican. Mr. Giovanni, I had the opportunity to read over your press release announcing your candidacy for county executive, and I happened to notice that the photo that you had put on the top of your press release was your official county commissioner photo that was paid for by the county. It was paid for by the taxpayers of Northampton counties. It's my understanding that it's not a photo that can be used for campaign activities. And how many times have we heard over the years that elected officials using public resources for campaign activities is something that cannot happen? It's something that can't be done. And I'll tell you right now, if this is something that I had done, I guarantee you there are folks on this dais, there are folks in this county that would be all over me like stink on you know what. So again, this is certainly not the end of the world. I don't think we can be so casual, however, with these type of things. The lines being blurred. Again, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page as we're moving forward during this upcoming silly season that is upon us. So I wanted to bring this up because, again, shouldn't be using public resources for campaign-based activities. And I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page as we are moving forward.
The only thing I want to say about that is when we got the pictures taken originally, at least the first time that I did, my understanding was that we also, when he did the shots of us individually, had the right to go to the vendor and purchase those shots as well, that those were proofs. They selected a proof that was put on there,
Yeah.
but obviously there were several others.
I
So-
purchased some for my home.
So,
Yes.
so I think, like you said, it's a little blurry. So, but if he purchased that picture, then he certainly has the right to use what he purchased.
I
And
just want to make
so-
sure taxpayer money isn't being used for any sort of campaign-related activities.
I hear you, and I don't know how
Right.
you're going to police that, because I think that that's happened before in other ways, and so I appreciate the sentiment, and I don't think anybody meant to violate that. But I'm not going to,
Are we actually spending money, though, by taking a copy of a photo that was already taken?
Taxpayers paid for that photo.
For the purposes of being on council.
But if
it's a
Mr.
copy of a photo of himself. Are we acting like this is costing anybody money, or are we just trying to?
I don't know. Mr.
Air out
Fredo,
their
I can
laundry.
tell you, for my race, I did not use previous pictures that were paid for with taxpayer money with other positions that I
neither
held.
did I, but
I
I
used my
also-
own. I had a photo. I had a photographer take them, and I used my campaign expenses in order to do that. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page moving forward.
I'm not. That's not my point. That's why I spoke up. I'm not on the same page. I'm a little confused as to why that's an issue. It just seems a little.
And I said it's not the biggest issue in the
I know,
world. It's
I know.
really not the biggest issue. We got bigger fish to fry here. But, you know, the lines tend to get blurred at times. And I want to make sure that that doesn't happen as we're moving forward. Because, again, like I said, if I had done something like this, seriously, there would be folks that would be all over me. So,
did you want to speak about it, Captain? He's on a boat. Giovanni?
No, I mean, it was a photo that was copied. I understand that, and okay, no problem. Won't use it again. Very sure.
Thank you. I guess in line with that, though, there are some people who may run, may not run. I don't want this day is used to weaponize candidates anyway.
Absolutely. Mhm.
And I have a sense that it's already sort of starting, so like tonight can be the end of it. I appreciate that, but I think it should stop here. Yes.
The only comment I'll make is I don't consider it silly season. You know, I think it is an important process, a government
Absolutely.
process, it's a democratic process, and while I understand how you could characterize it that way, unfortunately, that could apply. I don't see it that way, so I just want to put that caveat into your comments, but I do appreciate you raising the concern about taxpayer money, absolutely.
Any other comments?
Agreed. Agreed. I agree on the same thing.
Thank you. Any other new business? County Council Committee reports. Mr. Brown.
Finance Committee met yesterday. We discussed bonds. We had a presentation from the county controller on multiple audits that had been performed, 2 NDJ offices, several hotels, and I think it was the P-card audit was presented to council with that. We discussed the bond issue and the other items that were addressed by council this evening.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Kapora?
The Personnel Committee met yesterday. The appointments, reappointments were voted on this evening.
Thank you. Anyone else? Liaison reports? Council clerk reports?
Nothing.
Solicitors report.
Nothing.
Motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.